Hey guys, Kevin Downey from Kevin M. Downey and Strategic Advisor at Aptive Index. Thanks for taking the time, really appreciate it. In this video, I want to speak generally about drive-based hiring and what it is all about, why you should be looking at it for your company. What is the problem it addresses in the United States with employees and within organizations and what we're seeing. And, it's been around a while, but as a method. But Aptive Index is relatively new and just blows everybody away with its science and its AI, which is unbelievable. And I cover that in other videos. But, if you're not familiar with drive-based hiring, I'm going to show you some examples and a microcosmic example of exactly why it matters, and I'm going to prove it to you in this video today. So drive-based hiring. So it's a 100-year-old science. It's been in use for decades. It's growing in use for sure. Why are we seeing companies turn to it more? And Aptive Index obviously is growing quickly. Turnover is getting more painful, a lot more expensive. We've got to reduce turnover. We're at 42 to 47% in the United States. Depending on the data you believe, we've got to get a higher percentage of top performers in companies. We have to. We can't just keep churning people in and out all the time. There's nothing more painful and more expensive than that in business right now. And it is reaching epidemic proportions. And the only way we know how to hire in putting it in simple terms is we get resumes, we run them through an ATS, we match keywords, and that's how we decide who we're going to screen. And then we have HR screening them, right? And that process we have proven doesn't work. It does not prove to predict performance, to find the right people for organizations. We have the tools and the technology available now where we can very accurately identify who are built, what kind of jobs people are built for, and match them to the jobs and not look primarily at skills and experience or resume. Because even if they were accurate, it still is one of the worst ways to predict future performance. But on top of that, now we've got resumes that people are saying is not just exaggerated, but AI is writing everybody's resumes. That for some people, they're saying that resumes are downright fabricated. So it doesn't make any sense, right? Even though we know the science really was better than going that kind of route with hiring and hiring this way, now it really doesn't make sense. So this is why we're seeing the change. So what is drive-based hiring? So we're talking about measuring attributes, technically cognitive psychology attributes, that are established in our teams and they don't change. These are attributes that are our fundamental needs and motivations that drive our decisions and our actions, how we're wired, how we're built. Okay, so they're not changing, right? Unlike IQ, EQ, personality, right? You see that a lot of things you can't use for hiring, right? I'm not going to name names, right? You can go to the Aptive Index website and see all kinds of stuff on their competitors page of things that you can't use for hiring, right? If you go down this list and you compare a whole bunch of stuff on here that are personality assessments and all kinds of stuff that you can't use for hiring, right? They're not EEOC compliant. What can you use that's EEOC compliant? Measuring cognitive attributes, because it's completely neutral and they don't change, right? So what happens when we look at someone whose attributes match the job, right? This is how you know. And this is know if you are wired for what you do as an owner. And in most cases you are, right? Because we have the choice to do whatever we want probably. So we end up doing things that we're a lot more wired for, right? Because we're choosing in comparison to employees looking for jobs, right? By comparison. So top performers in companies have jobs that match attributes. Everything feels natural, engaging, and sustainable. It's like going downhill, right? Not everything within the job, but generally speaking. Right? It's like we have flow on a day-to-day basis, right? We're writing with our dominant hand is a great analogy. If the job doesn't match the attributes, we're doing things that fight natural drives, right? It creates stress, burnout, underperformance, non-performance in the case of sales sometimes. Everything's an uphill battle. It's like writing with our non-dominant hand. It's just completely uncomfortable. Everything, all day, every day, right? That is how you know whether someone is built for a job. You build the job, you look at the people's patterns coming off the assessment, you match them to the job. Now you know who you should be looking at, right? That's drive-based hiring. It is more accurate. We end up with significantly lower turnover rates. We have the validation studies to prove all that, okay? Looking at, I don't want to cover all of this implementation stuff, but one quote from a client, played D1 ball, sales leader, said working without it, now that he's been in it, he was with a competitor of Aptive Index for years, and so he understands the science really well, and he's now an Aptive Index client, and he said working without it is like playing baseball without a glove. It's just, you're just completely handicapping yourself, for lack of a better word, okay? All right, let's take a look at real world example. All right, and this is a profile, we're going to use me. So relatively high I, low S, high mid C, high, very high P. Okay, high emotional resonance, very low pro-social, really high intensity, mid abstraction. Okay, so we'll set me aside, but that's what they're called. These four make up our profile, and when you take it and you get your results, this is what's making your primary profile. And then these are standalone attributes we use for different jobs, right, that we will implement in here, and I'm going to show you an example. Okay, so let's look at 5 sales roles. Okay, and this is an example of why drive-by hiring. This is just a microcosmic example because it applies to everything. But this is what became like proof to me in measuring cognitive attributes, and I've been around it for 10 years, but there was 2 steps. Number one, I took multiple, what I would call quality products in the space before Aptive Index came along, and my dots were pretty much the same on all of them. So I know the science works in that end, okay? So they measure something. I also took the same one 6 years apart, and they didn't change. So there you can establish that there is some consistency and accuracy to what's going on there, and you read it, and you look at your profile, and you read it in the explanation, you go, oh yeah, that's really close. I mean, that's 90-95%. That's what everybody says. 90-95% accurate. Almost everyone says that, because they'll nitpick one thing. Say, well, I'm a little bit different in this regard. Okay, right, but it's 90-95% accurate. That's what everybody says. All right, so let's look at sales, right? And we look at B2B sales in particular. And I've got 5 roles here. One called closer more applies to B2C than it does B2B most of the time. But I got 5 roles here. I'm going to show you an example of why hiring for wiring over resume ends up with better people that are top performers that fit the jobs and will last longer and provide better ROI for you as a company. And they're going to be better performers in the job, and they're going to be happier, and they're going to stay longer. Right? Because they're not doing what they're doing what they're built to do. They're not doing what they're not built to do. Okay. So let's look at a few sales profiles. This is a one call closer. This is more common in B2C. Somebody's got to go in on an appointment. They got one shot to assess, present, and close. Maybe they do it over 2 calls on an assessment and then, go in and present and close. Think like Windows in residential sales. They're going in on an appointment. They got one shot. All right. All right. Now we think of farmer sales rep, real common B2B. This is an account manager. This is somebody who's cross-selling, upselling, continually managing a customer base. It's high sociability, really high pro-social, right? This is someone who's the relationship. We talk about relationship sales. I hear that in B2B all the time. Well, our whole industry is unique. We're built on relationships. Oh, okay. Right. That, as if that's not true in almost every kind of business to some degree. But anyway, okay, so farmer sales. Then we go to hunter sales, which is the most common thing we're asked to hire in B2B. And this is where it gets really tricky. I'm going to show you the difference. So in hunter sales rep, they're wanting this person. This is someone who doesn't have to do a long-term relationship with a customer base. They're going out and they're working with the leads. They're doing presentations, maybe multiple, maybe in front of multiple people. They've got to go through layers of different people in the company sometimes, and they've got to maybe present multiple times, maybe adjust a proposal, and eventually get paper. But they don't have a long-term relationship with the customer. They're not reselling, cross-selling, upselling. Somebody else is doing deliverable of what they sell within the organization. Okay, they may do an annual check-in or something like that, or quarterly just check in, but they're not responsible for the ongoing relationship and deliverable to the customer. Okay, this is different than a farmer, very, very different, right? Here we got high social. Here we need high intensity, high influence. We need somebody who can present consultatively. Right, this is what we would consider a hardcore sales rep in the United States. And here's the perfect example of how you know this stuff works. Right, this is just a microcosmic example. I know it works, right? And there's all the evidence is out there, but this is a perfect example for anyone who's in B2B, owner, sales leader. Hiring all the time. People want this person to come in. They're hiring off of resume, skills, and experience. They're hiring off of industry experience, industry knowledge. They know the lingo. They've got sales quotas they've met, yada, yada, whatever. But they need them to go out and prospect. And they need them to dial the phone. They need them to do boots on the ground. And in these days, prospecting is too hard and too much of a grind. This person is not built for that. If I want a hardcore BDR to go out and gather intel, gather information, find decision makers, do research, right? Continually plug 50 to 100 times a day, over and over again, and face tons of rejection. Find decision maker, ask about pain point before we get into the sales process. Because remember, you're not selling until you have a decision maker with a pain point. Until that point, you're prospecting. You're doing business development. That's a marketing function, to be honest, done by salespeople, right? And these days, it's not being done a lot, right? Why? Because, go back to the explanation. If the person's wiring pattern doesn't match, we get stress, burnout, underperformance, or in the case of B2B sales reps, a lot of times non-performance. Why? We hire them and then we ask them to pick up the phone and they don't do it because they're not built for it. They don't want to do it. They're just not built for it at all. It's not even close. That they're not built to do 50 to 100 dials and only talk to 5 people in a day. This person is. Yet we're hiring this person to go out and do the prospecting. This is the perfect microcosmic example to understand why drive-based hiring is the solution for every position in a company. Skills and experience will matter for some roles, absolutely, right? Looking at resumes is going to be part of it. But this is the thing that is going to identify and predict future performance better than any of those things can. It's going to be better than resume, skills, or experience, or your gut reaction as an HR person or a hiring manager. This science is what hires correctly. And this is why it is the baseline. And again, microcosmic example. Hunter sales rep, this person can sell, but they're not built for prospecting 50 to 100 times a day. I need this. I need this guy. I need this guy right here. I need this guy to go out and he's going to bang the phone 75 times a day. He's going to talk to 10, 15 people, and he's going to drive us 1, 2, 3 appointments. 1 to 2 a day, no problem. And can do it over and over again and face the rejection, low ER, face the rejection. It doesn't faze him. It doesn't faze him. He just keeps going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. This person can't do that. They're not built for it. They're just not built for it. And that is a microcosmic example of why hiring for drives and attributes is going to always win over skills experience. First of all, skills and experience is always moving, number one. And number two, it doesn't predict future performance. We've statistically known it forever, right? And finally, companies are starting to get the gist. Like, it's turning the corner. And part of the reason is because some of Aptive's competitors have made more headway and there's more distribution and more experience in the employees in companies. So beyond the owners, we're seeing more employees in HR and hiring managers that are familiar with some of Aptive's competitors, right? Okay. And that's part of it, but also Aptive being usable, far more usable than its competition. The AI will blow you away at what it can do, and I don't want to dig into. I dig into that in other videos. And how much easier it is to use in its competition, so much easier to grab hold of it and what it means, and matching people to jobs and asking its AI for its opinion on matching people to jobs and all kinds of things. There's just so much to it. But this is what drive-based hiring is all about, and it is why companies are starting to move in this direction. They're finally looking at it and saying, we've been banging our head off the wall for forever and doing the same thing and getting the same results. I'm not even going to repeat the adage. We got to do something different. We have to look at this differently. And this is the ticket. This is the solution that you're looking for, okay? All right, if you haven't taken it, take it. Get a link from me. If you don't have one, there's one in the description here on YouTube, or go to our website, kevinmdowney.com. Take Aptive Index, link is up in the corner. Take it, run through it. It takes 8 to 10 minutes. Results will come to you as a PDF that if you want to talk about using it in your company, we need to jump on a call. We'll do a demo. We'll look at a number of different things. We'll look at you if you've already taken it. Otherwise, if you're bashful, we can look at me and no problem, and we'll dig into it, and or other people that we have in my account, and we'll take a look at it and show you what you can do for your business. Okay? Thanks for being here today. Best of luck in business, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.